Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another installment, an exciting adventure, the next episode of Fairfield 2.0. And oh my gosh, we have a couple of very talented people who are going to have to explain themselves a little better than I can explain them. We have Chris Scamehorn, ceramicist. I'm not sure if that's the word, but it is the word, okay. Ceramicist. And Tom Morgan, oh my God. Singer-songwriter, incredible blues aficionado, folk aficionado. He knows that we'll talk. We'll see what this guy is about. And let's just jump right in. As you notice, we have all sorts of ceramic pieces here. But what you don't know is that some of these function as musical instruments too. And we're going to get the skinny, whatever that means. Does anybody know what that means, where that came up?
It means you're trimming away the fat, the extraneous stuff, the unnecessary, and getting right down to the important,
nice.
The nitty-gritty. Nitty-gritty.
The nitty-gritty. Where did
brass tacks?
Where did the... Okay, look, you're bringing up brass tacks.
Yeah.
What is that from?
I don't know.
Okay, we stumped Tom Morgan, which is, I think, impossible.
I have a book on this.
Oh, my gosh. You didn't bring it.
I didn't bring it, no. I didn't know we were going to be needing it.
Yes, I told you before the show. Okay,
anyway, the skinny.
Back to the skinny on Mr. Ceramicist over here. We have musical instruments over here, as I was. Let's point to one, and here's another, and
sure,
another over there.
Yeah.
Can you describe well, first of all, you're in town for a while now. You just moved here.
Yeah, I just moved here from Carbondale, Illinois. I finished my master's degree in 2010 and opened up a gallery and studio, and recently relocated to Fairfield.
Nice. And right now you're staying at St. Mary's?
Correct. Yep, that's where my studio and gallery is at.
Cool. Very cool. What kind of apparati, whatever that is, do you have over there that helps you with your processes? I imagine an oven of some sort.
I've got a full functioning studio.
Right.
So I've got like a kiln room with a couple kilns, got a clay mixing room, and I use the clay off of the property and make a clay body from it. So the works that I make are using local clays. A number of different tools, as well as space and shelving, that kind of thing. I teach workshops to the public and offer lessons, and also make my own work.
He offers lessons, ladies and gentlemen.
I do.
So if somebody wanted to contact you, they would get to you through your website, I guess, which would email address.
Yep, exactly. My email address is cmsceramics@yahoo.com.
Nice. And again, it's Chris Scamehorn, who we're talking to regarding the ceramics. What is the process? Okay, so a lug like me comes into your class, and I know nothing about ceramics, but I know I want to make an ashtray. What do you do? How do you treat a lug like me?
Well, what I first do is start off with just explaining different techniques and processes. Ceramics is very process oriented. There's a number of things you go through. You can also do a lot of different techniques with textures. You can take impressions off of anything textured and create works with it. So you can kind of create interest that way. It's such an unlimited creature. It's like being a musician. That once you just get involved into it, it's unlimited. So that's one of the ways that I approach, but also like a philosophy. Delving deeper into that.
A philosophy. Okay, so let's delve into that for a little bit.
Sure.
And obviously we have something borderlining. We're going to jump into that discussion, I have a feeling, based on the musical instruments too. But what kind of philosophies are involved when you're making ceramics? Is it a matter of like focus? Is that a primary thing?
I compare it to alchemy in a sense.
Here we go.
Right. You're taking these different elements, these materials, and you're transforming it into another thing. You're taking an idea, a non-physical form, and you're making it physical. So You're combining these opposites, right? And we're the crossing point of that situation. We ourselves, with spirit and body, we are the crossing point of how we make dreams real.
Right. And turning the non-physical into the physical is also something that's involved with music. Now, we haven't... Let's say hi to Tom over here, Tom Morgan. Tom, the thing that impressed me, I think, the most after I saw you play, and you have a little group in town, in addition to you playing solo a lot. Can you talk about how you guys got together?
I can, yeah. So we have a duo called Skunk River Medicine Show, and should I tell the history of
just-
where that name comes
Sure,
from?
absolutely.
Well, at first, let me describe who we are and what we do. So George Foster is the other half of Skunk River Medicine Show, and George is a brilliant bass guitarist. And we had been experimenting with different band configurations, as many musicians do. People come and go, and when you try to start a band, and we spent a couple of years with different people in town as members of this band that we had called Walking Shoes.
Nice.
And then never really saw the light of day, because somebody would leave, somebody else would come in, we'd teach that person the repertoire, and then somebody else would leave, and then we'd start all over again. But anyway, eventually George and I decided that we really liked hot tuna. Hot tuna, for as many of your viewers will be familiar, maybe some won't be familiar, but there was a band called Jefferson Airplane. I guess they're still, are they still? There's a version of them that's still playing.
There's something somewhere. I know that, all I know is that Grace Slick is not the lead singer,
Right.
which bothers me a lot. But
Yeah,
go
she
on.
seemed to be a main part of the band. But
Yeah.
So Jefferson Airplane had two people in it, Jorma Kaukonen and Jack Cassidy. They had a little sub band. I should use the present tense because they're actually playing in Iowa City.
I was going to say we're going to interview them.
In, what is it, 5 days? Oh, you're interviewing them.
I believe so.
Fantastic. We tried to open for them, but they're just doing the whole show by themselves.
Nice.
But anyway, Jorma and I both learned from the same old blues guy named Reverend Gary Davis.
Ah, here we go.
When I was 15, I got to spend a little bit of time with him. Jorma spent a lot of time with him, as I understand. But anyway, all these years, going back to the 60s, to the heyday of Jefferson Airplane, Hot Tuna was a separate sub-band.
Right.
And Hot Tuna, it was a brilliant concept because, I mean, it boiled down to brass tacks again. It was the two of them. You know, later they said they would add other musicians, but basically it was the two of them. Jorma playing more or less this style that he learned from Reverend Gary Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Cassidy on bass. And there was an elegance and simplicity to this pairing, a kind of magic that happened.
Where did this devotion to Reverend Gary Davis come from? I mean, what kind of knowledge? Tell me about it. Let's talk about it for a sec.
So Reverend Gary Davis, born in 1896. And for people like me, young white kids in the 60s and 70s, who were we were folkies.
Right.
And there were still some of these old blues guys around.
Yeah.
So when I was 15, I got to meet Son House and Mississippi Fred McDowell and Roosevelt Sykes and Victoria Spivey and Mance Lipscomb and a lot of these people who were big names from the early blues, pre-World War II blues era.
Nice. Reverend
Reverend Gary Davis was a unique member of this pantheon.
Yeah.
And before World War II, there were regional styles of blues. So a lot of people are familiar with Mississippi Delta blues, kind of a more primal style. You could say rock and roll grew out of that style.
Okay.
On the East Coast, over in basically the Carolinas, was another style of blues, but sometimes referred to as Piedmont blues.
Okay, cool.
And
Right.
Piedmont blues is a little bit different than Mississippi Delta blues. It's a little bit more sophisticated.
Right.
When it's on the guitar, it's kind of usually more what we call finger style, finger picking. It has ragtime influences. It had white and black influences, urban and rural.
Mm-hmm.
Reverend Gary Davis, born in the 1890s, blind, was one of the two greatest exponents of this style, very sophisticated style. And he recorded way back in the 1940s, stopped playing blues, or they stopped singing blues,
Right.
when he became a born-again Christian and preacher. But he kept playing the style that you can still call blues.
Right. He just blues also involving the lyrics and the
Yeah.
approach being I mean, all the stories about, the crossroads and all that, and the devil and all that. I'm imagining that went contrary to what the Reverend Davis, when he became a reverend, was thinking. But also, you touched on it before, and I went like this to the audience because you had just you went into you're going into a zone about the blues, which is amazing because the blues is you started an education about the blues. Can you do the nutshell version? Of the various
blues?
Of the blues, yeah, just the nutshell version, because that could take like 3 shows.
It sure could. So blues, it's an integration of African traditional music that was brought over by the slaves that got blended along the way with melodic treatment of European music. Mm-hmm. And nobody really knows the history before the early 20th century because there were no recordings. Right. Starting in about the 1920s, there was a recording industry. And that had a huge impact on sort of crystallizing something that's now called the blues.
Right.
But before 1920, for people like you and me who are musicians, we talk about 12 bars, it means 12 measures, right. And we talk about 1-4-5 progressions, certain right. chord progressions that are supposed to be what blues is.
The traditional blues, right? Yeah. Chord patterns and all that, right?
Yeah. But before that time, it was all sorts of different chord progressions.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
And what happened was the phonograph industry, all these blues guys started hearing these recordings. And they said, oh, okay, I better start doing this stuff. And that kind of crystallized. And so a lot of people think blues is this thing.
It formatted.
But if you had a chance to sit with Reverend Gary Davis,
right.
As a 15-year-old, I'm sitting with him, watching him play. I realized, I had enough awareness at the time to realize there was this living, physical connection to the music of the 1890s that I was privileged to have a living connection with. Right. And so I got to hear him and watch him and learn from him these songs that were really dated back. It was blues.
Yeah.
But it went back to the 1800s. Right. And it had different format, different structure. It had this sort of ragtime style blended into it. Right. Then just to sort of finish one last point about Gary Davis, he would sing gospel music to this ragtime country blues style.
Yeah.
And he did that on the streets of Harlem for decades before he was kind of discovered about 1959. Mm-hmm. Became a huge influence on the folk blues revival. Greenwich Village, Dave Van Ronk, right. Bob Dylan used to open for him. Before Dylan was famous, 1961,
yeah.
Dylan was opening for Reverend Gary Davis.
And you can hear the blues. I mean, obviously, everybody who knows Dylan can hear the blues in
those
early folk recordings, too. So this is where that came from. And that's what most people may not remember or realize.
That's right.
Interesting. And a lot of and you know what? When you think about it, a lot of those people the people that are the early folksters, and even Fred Neils and folks like that, their element of their blues, I imagine, came from the same sort of devotion and that lineage.
Yeah, and these guys who came from the South and were huge influence on all these folkies, so Peter, Paul, and Mary, Donovan, Jerry Garcia learned from Reverend Gary Davis, Bob Weir learned from him, it goes on and on, Ry Cooder.
Ry Cooder, this is amazing. Chris, should we have him play a little something right about now? Give an example of one. Can you play a song that might come from this lineage, or maybe one of your most early songs that might have been influenced by him?
I will play a piece that I was like a lot of kids. When I was 13, 14, I was in garage bands playing Luai Luai and Gloria and so forth. And we were having a great time, but I heard somebody play this song, and I sold my Fender Telecaster, which I now regret. I really wish I sold that Fender Telecaster for $175. And I would like very much to still have it today because it would be worth $4,000 or $5,000 or something like that. But never, side story. Anyway, I heard somebody play this song that was from Reverend Gary Davis, and I sold the Fender. I went out and bought an old Martin acoustic guitar, and I started to learn this style. You won't hear the blues so much in this piece, but this is more emphasizing the ragtime part of this,
Cool.
the music, and this is a piece that's called Slow Drag. Slow Drag was a dance. Thanks. Slow Drag was, I need groupies to come with me. That was in the contract, by the way, that we were supposed to have groupies.
Yeah, but you had to
here.
pay for them was the point.
Oh, okay.
We had no front money. Okay.
So the Slow Drag was the name of a dance style in the South in African American communities. It was kind of a precursor to ragtime, and
I notice you have a snark.
yeah, these are wonderful. This has been a real blessing for me. This is a little there, that B string.
The B string.
You know,
oh,
this
the B
is
and the D.
I sit on stage forever and ever tuning these guitar, but this thing helps me.
What's amazing is that, you know, for years I remember, you know, I used them too. You used the pedal, you know, the pedal.
Yeah.
Too. And this thing, I'd just rather look over here.
Yeah,
it's,
right.
it's like, okay, got it.
Mm-hmm.
This is great. For anyone who needs a guitar tuner, snark's the word. Okay.
Available at Dave Randall's music store on the square.
Part of Fairfield. Oh, Fairfield is watching Fairfield 2.0. Snark. Snark.
All right, Slow Drag, or he sometimes called the Cincinnati Flow Rag, and I don't know where that came from, but.
Nice. Very nice. Jason, what did you think?
Awesome.
Oh, Jason Strong, ladies and gentlemen, behind the camera here at Fairfield 2.0. And actually for everything here, right, that comes out of the studio.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. You know, this was really wonderful, but can you play Stairway to Heaven?
Let's see.
It was a joke.
I know it was.
I have to say, with your playing, especially with your playing, it's hard to just like I want to, you know, I find myself, especially when you're going into the da 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 da, when you're going into those kind of riffs, I want to just kind of like, you know, close my eyes and go do that. But then it's like, but wait, I got to see what you're doing here. It's a toss up between close your eyes and enjoy and watch what the heck you're doing. You're such an excellent player, sir.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
And I guess we have to talk to Chris for a while.
Yeah, talk to Chris
for a while.
He's got some really cool stuff over here.
He does. And speaking of music, can we take a look at your ceramic musical instruments? Let's.
How about just the water drum?
It's right here.
Okay, so
yeah.
This type of instrument's been influenced by a number of different cultures around the world, ranging from cultures in Africa and also Southeast Asian and also Native American. So basically what I've done is kind of study different forms that you can hit and manipulate airflow through.
Okay.
So the way that this is played is you can actually tune it with water. There's not water currently in it, but you'll raise the pitch by adding water. Then you play it with your palms. And based on the attack is like the tonality of the sounds. Because so like if you hit it like quicker, you can get like that kind of popping sound. If you hit it for a longer attack, you get more like a gong. So that's that kind of instrument.
Is that a third?
I don't know.
Some other things you can also like.
Or fourth? Or fifth? I don't know.
It'll be a third because there's the sharp.
All right.
So you can also like hit these two.
Wait, we've been talking. I'm sorry.
Great.
Yeah, it's almost like this. We can do that too. Okay.
That's a great instrument too. This is a whistling water vessel, influenced from Central and South American cultures. It create these instruments. For a long time, it wasn't really understood what their function was. They really thought it was just an amusing way to store like water or wine or something.
Huh.
But then after acquisitions, people that study acoustics studied them, they found out that the frequencies produced would vibrate with each other, and it had an influence on brain waves. So they would hook people up and study their brain waves while playing these instruments.
Okay, one more time.
So
Yeah.
I started experimenting with how to build them. So I looked at other diagrams of what other people have been doing. Once it kind of rehashed itself up into the present, and kind of took those ideas and played around with them.
Can I ask how similar or different are your instruments from what they found, what the archaeologists found?
They're completely different in terms of design.
Right.
What I'm doing is I'm taking the basic physics of how it works and then applying it to different forms that I'm interested in.
Okay.
So the basic idea is that you've got a hollow vessel, right? And there's there's tubes that connect each of these chambers. So there's holes so that water can move back and forth through each chamber, right? So then what I do is create a closed-off area on each chamber and then build a whistle and put a whistle into it. So the only way that when the waters move back and forth, the air can blow over the whistles. So when it moves on its own, it activates it. Now, if you go to these different cultures of Central and South America, their beliefs are with an animism, believing that everything has a spirit
an entity
of life, right? Even inanimate objects.
Yeah.
So bringing an inanimate object to life is basically the heart of it.
Wow. Now that dates back.
Dating back over 2,500 years.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. This is another one.
And just and before we get to this,
Sure.
Again, I wanted to go over how was this. That's so cool. How did the archaeologists or whoever discovered the paradigms?
Many of these would show up into museums like over a period of time, and there's such a disconnect with like what this was from. A lot of times they would learn about cultures based on the depictions on pottery, actually.
Right,
You see everyday life.
Yeah.
What you didn't see is the sacred on any day pottery. That was the other connection, is that they didn't see any of these whistling water vessels on any of the pottery that was dug up. So it wasn't everyday life, it was sacred. So it was,
The impressive, by the way, Fairfield, the impressive thing here is that you're seeing these functional ceramic musical instruments, basically, and this gentleman, Mr. Scamehorn, built these. He made these. It's just an amazing thing to me.
I also go out and I use the local clays in the areas. that I work.
Let's get into that for a second,
Sure.
and then let's play this. But
All right,
before
yeah.
that, let's talk about the clays.
Sure.
There's something special about the clay that you're finding in specific areas, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's all different. They all have different. I don't say the word
They've
identities,
got
but
their
qualities.
own, personalities.
Personalities.
They vary from clay to clay. So what I'll do is I'll go in, just kind of, look around the area, go to creek beds, go to like, sides of roads,
Skunk
or just
River.
look on the ground.
Skunk River.
Around here, there's clay everywhere, and you can actually just pick it right off the ground and roll it into a coil. And if you bend it around your finger and it doesn't break, it's got plasticity to it, so it's good clay. Like that's one way to read it is by the plasticity of it.
Do you go when you go hunting for clays? Do you play with it for a little bit and you go, oh man, this is it. Oh, and it's like, and then it isn't quite at the level you want it to be at.
It mostly comes back to like how much I can get of that quality. Because usually, like if it's there, it's pretty good. I mean, there'll be variations within it.
Yeah.
What I'll do is I'll dry it out and screen it, and then from that slip, I've got a clay mixer that I add other dry clays to, and so I formulate it into a clay body, like making a recipe for like cookies or something.
Right.
Yep. And then so the clay that I use is like roughly around like 20 to 30% of the clays that I dig. And I'll add other things to it, so I make it dishwasher microwavable safe.
Nice.
Stuff.
And so you
For,
have
like-
all of that, and you have all of that in
for like
your.
functional pottery.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Let's hold that up for the camera.
Sure.
Beautiful.
And then yeah.
And
Let's look
so
at the
the
other
glazes
clays.
are.
So one of the things I do is I make different colored clays.
And again, let's hold it up
Right.
for the camera.
And then I'll use different colored clays. I'll throw with it on the wheel, and then I'll glaze it, accenting over the colored clays, so you can see like this striation coming up through it.
Yeah.
Then the glaze over it. So I'm also interested in geology. I'll use even geological maps to locate clays.
Huh.
And so like the mapping becomes kind of an interest.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of reference that even in the pieces that I make. So like the layerings of earth,
Yeah.
the layerings of the clays. Like you look at the side and you'll see different layers.
Do you label on the bottom maybe where the clay came from or where it was made at least?
I can tell you where it comes from.
Okay.
But I just got my signature on these.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's
This was actually
the
from
signature
Southern
series.
Illinois. There's a place called Cobden, Illinois, where a lot of good kaolin was mined for a period of time that the famous Kirkpatrick brothers actually used for their pottery. And I was getting clays out of there.
How did you get inspired to do this?
Ceramics?
Yeah.
Well, my first memory dates back to first grade. I remember my art teacher coming to class with clay, and it was really my first experience. But there's something so familiar about the material, as if I had used it before, done it before. So there's something that transcended from it that I couldn't explain, and that's what's captivated me for so long.
Did you, as you got older, did you try to discover what that was, the
Yeah.
connection between you and ceramics?
Once I graduated high school, I went to a college, and it was that first semester I really knew that that's what I wanted to do. Then got my undergraduate degree, and then my master's degree in ceramics.
So when your buddies wanted to go party and you wanted to do ceramics, what was the reaction?
I do both.
There you
At
go.
the same time.
Right.
And what kinds of you've had shows obviously.
Oh, sure, yeah.
What kinds of reactions do people have to? I mean, I'm not gonna put this in any kind of like from a 1 to 10. This isn't whatever, but I'm gonna say a piece like this compared to an instrument, a musical instrument. What is your your range is dynamic as far as
Sure.
what you can do.
What I do
what
is
other
I-
kinds of things can you do?
What I'll do is compare it like this. You see the layers of it? Like this, the musical instruments is the brown, and then like the pottery, let's say it's the tan. It's really part of a whole, but it's just like a facet of something that's more or less nature.
Do you see all of this as interconnected?
Yes,
Like all of your instruments that
absolutely.
you've made? Okay.
Absolutely.
Can we move on to another instrument?
Sure.
The one that I prevented you from playing before?
So this is another whistling water vessel. So this is some of the different sounds you can get by rocking it.
Beautiful.
And then so also based on the water level is how it activates. So when I actually go to tune these, I'll tune it just by pouring approximately how much water I want. Sometimes I'll go over and have to pour it out, and then that actually affects the sounding whistles slightly, but it'll like gurgle a little bit more. So it'll have I don't know, just different tonalities. So by doing just various things, like just wetting down the mouth of it, that'll actually alter the sounds. So after I make it, I then learn how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's each one's a little bit different, and it's got its own like little quirks or its own little things.
Tells you how it wants to be played.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there anything? Oh yeah, here we go.
And this is a ceramic drum.
Playing this for a while because of the upstairs jamboree that's going on right now. Is there any? You have your prototype in mind. You understand where it's coming from as far as how these things have been designed before. Mm-hmm. You have a grasp of that. But what's the intuitive? What's the you're adding intuitive elements to this too? I'm imagining.
Sure.
Where does that come in, and how do you surrender to that?
One of the things that I'm influenced by is what we would call like nature, the natural, right? And it tends to be in like current age we separate ourselves from the natural. We'll say, oh, nature's out there. It's out there over in the woods. It's over underneath that rock. It's over in the air. And I don't have time to really get to know what that is because I have to live my busy life. Yeah. What I'm trying to do is really be that nature and then transform from that and create things from it. So I'm influenced by the things that I see myself in outside of me.
Wow. Well, you know what I was going to say before was we were brought up in an era where it was like God is everywhere, God is in everything type of thing. And it seems like the more connected you are, and the people that are more connected with nature in that way, it seems like the more things like this are easily, they just flow. But do you find when you're making an instrument and do you find yourself, well, the word might be transcending, but do you find yourself ever like feeling like at the end of making a particular piece that there's been some growth? Like you're not the same person after making that piece?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely. It's constant do
you have a story like that where it's like, you're done with the thing, maybe you're tired, the next morning you wake up and you went, I've changed, and this has really worked me as opposed to me working it. Would you have a story like that? Or something close to that? Or let me come up with one. It's
kind of specific, actually, and I don't have your story, but...
Okay, yeah.
Let's see. I'm not sure.
All right. Was there any piece in particular out of all the pieces that you brought today that you feel particularly connected with? When you were done with it, it was like I needed to do this because this was an important piece I had to make.
Actually, all of them do that.
Right.
Yeah.
You got me again.
Well, how about this? I did a body of musical instruments made with this woman's ashes, and this is one of the instruments.
Wow. There you go.
So this is made with human ash.
Wow.
And they're more or less reliquary pieces, and the idea is that through playing them, you physically reanimate them through sound.
So the theory also is part of their spirit is part of this whole...
The container contains her.
Wow.
Container contain her.
Very nice. Nicely done, sir. Do you feel like there's any... I don't want to put it exactly like this, but do you feel like it's like, well, maybe we should leave her alone? Maybe we should,
No, she's okay with it.
She's okay with it. All right, fine. Are you endlessly creating ceramics? Like you have to okay, it's that time. Like this show is preventing you from running to the.
Well, there's so many different facets to the physical making. Like I've been mostly trying to get my business up and going.
And your business again is where? How would one
contact you? It's located over at St. Mary's School. You can contact me by email address that I mentioned earlier. But also I have a website. Again, if you'd like. It's chrisscamehorn.com is my website. And then cmsceramics@yahoo.com.
There you go.
Yep.
Tom, we've left you alone for a while.
That's okay. No, this is
what do you think?
Really fascinating.
Ask him a question about what. I can't think of everything.
Do you do ensemble music with a number of people playing?
That's what I'm working
together
towards. Since I just moved here, I'm trying to get in touch with people, get to know people, because it's only been a couple months. So that's what I'm working at.
I mean, because as you're playing the blue whistle unit, and it has a certain sound, and then when you were playing this one, it has a certain sound, and I caught myself trying to imagine what they would sound like being played at the same time. Yeah. And
I've got sound clips of those.
Okay.
Which we could perhaps add later if you want to.
And then wondering if in Central and South America that was something that used to go on.
because it's when those tonalities overlap and vibrate and back and forth. So they would have multiples of them, like in a room, like echoing.
The equivalent now, really, of a drum circle.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
people playing together like that.
I mean, I don't know if either of you have heard this music from the African bush people, but it's I don't know what they call it, but I've heard some recordings of it, and it's the most magical, extraordinary, beautiful, beautiful music
love
I've
to
just
check that
about
out.
ever
Yeah.
heard.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes it's slapping the water in the river,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and it's using the echoes in the jungle or wherever they are, and
there are also qualities of their voice and
qualities
and
of their
elements
voice.
of the language that are more musical than not.
Yeah, I want to track this music down because I've heard it on the radio when I was in the middle of doing something else. But your instruments and the sounds that you're getting out of them sort of reminds me of the music of the bush people in
Well,
Southern
It transports you
Africa.
somewhere to another place.
It does, for sure.
Speaking of ensemble playing, how about we get the two of you jamming together on an instrument? Is there a song? Is there a piece that might be appropriate to having?
I don't know
some whistling?
that I have one that I can come up with.
You can play something similar to what you played earlier.
Okay.
I can do the drum. I can.
Yeah,
do
yeah, okay.
Or can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Something maybe even a little mellower than that. Something not ragtime, but something a little more.
You can make a suggestion.
Something more Andean. I don't know.
Well, all right. Let's try. This is a Leo Kottke piece.
Before we play the Leo Kottke piece, is there something that might sound a little like Leo Kottke so that publishing wouldn't be an issue later on? Ladies and gentlemen, let me explain. We're just trying to keep things sort of public domain.
Yeah.
In this.
Okay,
whole,
public domain.
Yeah.
Then we're going to go back to the ragtime style again.
Okay, here we go.
So.
Never said a word. Never said a word. Imagining this is not the first time that you've played with other people, with like a guitar or something, but is this the first time that you've played with a ceramicist?
I think it probably, well, I'd have to think back to the 60s and 70s.
There's a lot of those around there.
Who knows what happened back then?
Oh, man.
Damn hippies.
They're ceramics.
I play in the mud all the time, so.
That's perfect. What was that? Was that a telltale sign? When, as a kid, did you like the mud?
Oh, yeah. I was covered in it.
What do you think as far as artists today? We were talking, and we've had 2 other segments so far, and this is the 3rd segment. Thank you very much, both of you, for being on.
Sure.
It's a pleasure.
By the way, in case you just tuned in, Chris Scamehorn and Tom Morgan, Fairfieldians here in Fairfield 2.0. you look at a lot of the electronics and a lot of stuff that's going on from it's another world. It's another perspective. It's
Sure.
like learning technology and exploring that further than exploring more natural, let's say. This is a technology, sure, and it's a technology to build all this, and it's a technology to play, but it's not this technology doesn't rely on synthesized sounds.
Right.
Yeah, I would say this is an organic sound. This is not a synthesized sound.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you're viewing, is there a marriage between
absolutely.
Skrillex? I've been
Sure.
bringing Skrillex up a lot. Dead Mouse. What would that be? What's the relationship between organic instruments and
I think
more
that-
synthesized?
I think that's actually a beautiful just mergence of something that are of opposites, so to speak, and that idea can be applied to so many things in life. Like when there's a marriage of opposites, what happens?
Uh-huh.
And, just as basic as can be.
Nice. Do you find yourself listening to? I don't know what your tastes are. Like, what kind of music do you listen to casually?
I listen to all sorts of different types of musics, but
What do you gravitate towards?
there are some artists out there like Sufjan Stevens is one of them that I really like. I could really just keep naming off different things. I also play guitar and sing and play other types of musical instruments like this. But there's something about finding a middle point with creating instruments out of clay and merging music with both of these passions together, creating musical instruments out of it.
There's a connection here, Mike, that I wanted to comment on.
Mm-hmm.
The slaves had their percussion instruments taken away from them by their white masters because the white slave owners were concerned.
Didn't they create a language?
Yeah, they were concerned about. They heard about the fact that in Africa percussion instruments were used to communicate from village to village, and so they were afraid that the percussion instruments would be used in some way that might threaten their
the power structure.
Structure. And so what ended up happening was the slaves started using found objects to create music, and just whatever they could find. They would work all week, and maybe they would have a Saturday evening or something where they could create music, and that outlet was really an important thing for them. That opportunity to express that, all that pent up whatever, and all the creativity that they had bottled up. And so they started using a lot of things. And a lot of the music that came out of the Mississippi Delta and so forth was using things that were just, around. And that's partly what I was thinking of when you were talking. Mm-hmm. Is that in a very real sense, you're using found objects, mm-hmm. unleashing the spirit of it, and using it to create wonderful new sounds. And that's part of the story of the music that came from the slaves.
Well, and of course they had their voices.
Absolutely.
So, but I wanted to ask. We stopped short in the nutshell description of the blues, but we have Chicago blues. We have blues that
mm-hmm.
proliferated and moved elsewhere. Is there a nutshell version of that too?
Yeah.
Because we opened the Pandora's box, so I guess we need to keep going.
Yeah. So in the 1920s, there was a big migration of African Americans from. First, there had been a migration from rural to urban, but to the plantations and so forth. But then there was a migration to the north, and a lot of people stopped in places like Memphis, mm-hmm. St. Louis, mm-hmm. Or went on to Detroit or Chicago. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, there was this feeling of let's leave the country blues, which was, the music, the acoustic blues that was being played before the invention of electric guitar and amplification and all that. There was a feeling of let's leave that behind, because it was, for many of the African Americans, it was associated with something that they were eager to forget. Mm-hmm. And but for a few people, there were some people who went on to take those traditions and create new sounds. Mm-hmm. One of them was Muddy Waters, and many of your viewers have heard Muddy Waters and just love his music.
He's one of the first. There are a few of them that are your first exposures to blues.
Mm-hmm.
Who are some people you recommend? Let's say somebody wants to learn the blues right now, right this second. What should they be running off to listen to?
Well, some of it can be for people kind of an acquired taste. You know, you go and hear it, and it's like, I don't think I like that. You know, but then over time,
I wouldn't say.
It's just a matter of familiarity. So, for example, I really, really love the music of Robert Johnson. Mm-hmm. You know, as
I love Skip James too.
Skip James. Okay, let me talk about Skip James for a minute. Thank you. So Skip James was he kind of took the blues back in the late 1920s. He took it to another level of both his lyrics and his playing. And you know, there are people who call him a poet and a visionary. And a lot of his lyrics were quite dark. You know, it's heavy stuff. But there are people who call themselves blues experts, blues aficionados, who say the greatest blues ever recorded was recorded by Skip James. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they will cite a couple of pieces in particular. One is Hard Time Killin' Floor Blues. Yep. You can tell
it was on Oh Brothers, Where Art Thou?
It was in the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So probably a lot of your viewers saw this movie.
He's around the campfire.
Yeah. Chris Thomas King.
I love you remember this. This is wonderful.
Yeah. Chris Thomas King is in the movie. He plays a character like Skip James. And he actually plays the Skip James piece in the movie, Hard Time Killin' Floor Blues. It's so beautiful. It's haunting. And all the other blues, Skip James would never let other blues guitarists see, you know, what he was doing.
That's interesting.
You know, because he didn't want them to steal his technique. It turns out, we figured it out. What he did is he tuned his guitar. There was a legend about Skip James that he sort of helped to promote. that he was playing the music that he got from supernatural sources,
and of course that proliferated to other artists. You know, and then you have other.
There are all kinds of stories I could tell about that. But it turns out he was tuning his guitar differently than everybody else. He had got this tuning idea from a guitarist from the Bahamas, and he tuned it what's called D minor tuning. D minor tuning, right? And people have been playing in D major tuning, but hardly anybody was playing in D minor tuning. And so he created this amazing music with his brilliant. It was brilliant. And then another piece that he did that's quite wonderful that a lot of people cite as they think the best blues ever recorded was Devil Got My Woman. And then a third one I'm going to mention because George and I recorded it on our CD.
And what's the name of the CD?
The CD, well, it's eponymously named, I guess.
And it's named?
Skunk River Medicine Show.
Okay.
So, we it's available on iTunes and everywhere else, and I have them in the trunk of my car. And very high tech. I walk around Fairfield waving them in the air.
So if you want one in Fairfield.
But anyway, so we did a Skip James piece, and I have to tell the story. So it's called Cypress Grove Blues, and we did it as an instrumental. And I learned the piece. I played it for George. We said, hey, we have to put that on the CD. We played it together once. We went into the studio. It was the second time we'd ever played it together. And at the last minute, I said, you know what? I'm not going to use my guitar. I'm going to use the banjo. Picked up the banjo. It was dripping with reverb, and the piece sounds like you're in this swamp, in the bayou, and there are voodoo rituals going on off in the distance.
Wow.
And the steam's rising from the water. Yeah. And anyway, so we were like, it was the second time we'd ever recorded it, and that ended up on the CD. Very different from all the other music that George and I do.
Beautiful. Do you want to? What year was this? What year was that?
About a year and a half ago.
What year was the? I'm sorry, I phrased that wrong. What year was the song composed? You think?
So maybe somewhere around 1928, and then what happened was Skip James kind of disappeared from the scene. You know, the Depression came. A lot of these blues guys went on to do other work, and then some of the blues collectors in the 1950s, we wouldn't even know about this music if it weren't for this handful of nerdy blues collectors. I worked for one of them, Nick Pearls at Yazoo Record in Greenwich Village. They made a movie about him, Ghost World.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Steve Buscemi plays this guy, Nick Pearls, that I used to work for. But anyway, so Nick Pearls and these other guys, they went down to the South, and they found Son House, and they found these other people. They found Skip James, and he came back. By this time, he was, I forget what it was, throat cancer or something like that he was, tuberculosis, I think.
Okay.
But he lived long enough after they found him, rediscovered him, to play at the Newport Folk Festival, and that was where Mississippi John Hurt was there, and Son House, but Skip James would turn his back on him when he played, so they couldn't see what he was doing.
Do you? I think that's old enough so you can get away with playing that. I think that's public domain at this point. Do you?
I haven't played it in a long time. Let's see if I can pull it off.
With your trusty snark, the tuning will be no problem.
Snark.
This might be a mistake, but let's see.
And were the blues important to you when you were young?
Yeah, I love blues.
Nice. Do you ever listen to the blues while you're?
I'm sure that's happened. Yeah, absolutely. Building some of them. Studio hour.
Robert Johnson, I guess, was my favorite. I interviewed Dion DiMucci from Dion and the Belmonts. I call me the Wanderer. This is like a repeat performance from the other day. But he loves everybody that you mentioned, and one of the things he brought up the Crossroads story, and the Crossroads story, it seems to me, belongs to everybody. It's like every blues musician has that story. Oh yeah, with the devil, he's sold his soul to the devil, and they've got to find a couple of new stories.
There are new stories. The scholars are figuring a lot of things out about that story. It turns out that story about going down to the crossroads that got pegged with Robert Johnson was not actually Robert Johnson's story.
Perfect. Of course.
It was Tommy Johnson's story. First, Tommy Johnson, not related to Robert Johnson, was another blues guy. He did Big Road Blues and a bunch of classic Delta blues pieces. But he was the one, again, often this is marketing. So, just the story, because we didn't actually tell the story.
Right.
So the story was originally associated with Robert Johnson. Since I got to meet Son House, who was the biggest influence on Robert Johnson, Son House is part of the story.
Right.
The story was that Robert Johnson, as a young boy, was hanging around Son House, who was the king of the Delta blues, and he couldn't play, and Son House was dismissing him and saying, just don't bother us, kid. So Robert Johnson disappeared for about a year, and he came back, and he was playing brilliantly, and then he recorded his what was it, 29 sides.
Right.
But and it was kind of like, where did he get that from? Yeah. Well, probably he was just practicing.
Yeah, it's like he practiced. What do you want?
But the story that was being spread around, that supposedly was being spread around, was that he had gone down to the crossroads, where two dirt roads crossed, and had a meeting with supposedly the devil at midnight. Who he handed him his guitar. It was actually not the devil, by the way. It was Papa Legba, who's part of African mythology.
Oh.
Not the devil.
Not the devil.
Papa Legba retuned his guitar, supposedly, as the story's supposed to have gone, handed it back to Robert, and then from then on, Robert could play But as the legend goes, he had sold his soul to Papa Legba. Now, it turns out that this story was actually more something that Tommy Johnson was spreading, and so it's kind of... Anyway, we're getting too arcane here, but...
I would love you to play this, but I think what we'll do is let's
I
sign
can't get
off.
it into the right tuning right now anyway.
But we'd love to hear one more song. How about
Okay.
that? And as he's tuning, let's sort of do the closing now, because I would love to go out on music. And our amazing cameraman, and producer, director, emperor of the known universe, Jason
All of the
Strong,
above.
all of the above, will figure out what to do with the end of the show when that happens, timing-wise. But Fairfield, thank you again for tuning into Fairfield 2.0. This is your show. You should be here. You need to be here. We need to talk about everything that interests you and what you're contributing to the community and your own lives. It would be great to talk to you. So thank you very, very much, Chris
thank you.
Scamehorn,
Yes.
for introducing us to the concept of
thank you
musical
for
instruments
having
and
me.
ceramics and also ceramics. Thank you. And of course, Tom Morgan. Thank you for playing. And we never got to the second half, but we were going to talk about all these other things that you're into, but
That's
music
okay.
is more than enough.
Yeah.
All right.
So this is a piece called Hesitation Blues, and I'm picking this piece because we were talking about blues that was earlier.
Right.
This is probably one of the earliest blues pieces.
Beautiful.
And I don't know if I'm going to manage to find my words here, but
Shall I hold the book like you're
but if not, I can just do it instrumentally. But the piece is Hesitation Blues. Definitely the music for sure goes back to the 1800s. And Reverend Gary Davis was just a boy when he heard somebody playing this. And classic blues. And this is a perfect example of blues that is not the usual, but it
also
has,
pretty good.
which is also pretty good. Which was a lot of the Robert Johnson had that kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
But Hesitation Blues, this is the way Gary Davis used to play it, more or less. And Hot Tuna, they have their version. Sorry.
This is kind of cool too.
I woke up this morning just about 4:30. Hesitating blues was knocking on my door. Tell me how long do I have to wait? Can I get you now? Baby, must I hesitate? 'Cause I'm standing on a corner with $1 in my hand. I'm looking for a woman who's looking for a man. Tell me how long do I have to wait? Can I get you now? Baby, must I hesitate? Well, nickel is a nickel, and a dime is a dime. I need a new gal, Lord, she won't mind. Tell me how long